This morning, I got a message from Dave. The couple of places we had our eye on are now under contract after a couple of days. We're thinking the market is just too crazy at the moment. Let's be real. Some of the major banks are predicting price growth of up to 20% in the next 2 years. So is the market too crazy? Is there a bubble? And how do you buy in a rising market? In today's video, we're gonna go through all of this. We're gonna show you some tips, including the elbows out technique that's gonna help you buy a home today. Let's dive right in. And remember, if you like the content of this video, give us a thumbs up. So you might have heard all the hype in the media. The auction clearance rates are going nuts, properties are selling within days, but what does it actually mean? Let's go through 3 examples that we're seeing right now in the market today. The first one, open homes. The face of open homes have changed entirely over the last 12 months. We've been through COVID where you had to do virtual open homes, then there were restrictions on the number of people allowed in the property. Fast forward to today, and there are literally lines down the road. Last weekend, one of my clients, Melinda, went to an open home here in Brisbane. She said that the street was so packed, you couldn't actually get a car park there. You had to park 2 streets over. Then when she turned up to the open home, a nice little house in Banyo, there was a line down the street. It's completely wild right now. Open homes are so full, she said that you couldn't even see the floor in the house. It was like being back in an old uni party. There were so many people there, and you need to be prepared for this. So before you go to an open home, make sure you've got your checklist. We've got something you can download below, but just be aware that you're gonna not be the only ones there talking to the agent. The second thing we're seeing right now is some crazy property price growth. Sure, you've heard in the media, property prices are up month on month, but what does it actually look like in the local area? So like I said, back to the open home scenario, there are multiple offers happening regularly at properties. Speaking to an agent earlier this week, he actually said he prefers not sending properties to auction because things are selling quicker. They're getting not 1, not 2, but 4, 5, 6 offers on a property at once, and the agents are playing people off each other to get the prices higher and higher. So translating this back to property reports, Real As, and some of the other tools we've talked about in other videos, the properties are selling for between 10 to 15% over what the RP Data property report says. An example of this was a property that recently sold on the south side of Brisbane, 21 Campfield Street in Nathan. The property was being advertised as offers over $550,000. It was legitimately online, and our clients looked there and there with a pretty good chance. We gave them the RP Data report. They made a very strong offer in their mind of $580,000. I mean, it's offers over $550. You're offering $580. That's over $550, right? Wrong. The property ended up selling for $675,000 with over 10 offers on the property. It was completely demoralizing for our clients. They thought $580 was a fair offer. They'd done their building and pests, they'd paid for the inspections, they'd been to the property 3 times and braved the open houses just to find out they were completely outpriced in that market. The third thing we're seeing is auctions and clearance rates. Now, I don't need to go into the clearance rates. You're seeing it in the media. They're bananas. They're year on year over 80% in most of the states around Australia. But here's a real life example of one of our clients who went to an auction recently in Corinda in Brisbane. So there were over 13 registered bidders, and the RP Data CoreLogic report we gave our clients said the property was probably going to be worth around $695. This was also supported by a recent sale that had happened in the same street only 1 month before in February 2021 for $757,000. So our clients were thinking, hey, I think $750 is going to be spot on. That property sold for $757, maybe they paid over. I'm still gonna get a good deal at $750,000 and I'm happy to pay that. Even though it's over that RP Data report I mentioned is $695. It makes sense, property market's going up, that's fine. It wasn't. The property ended up selling for $860,000. Again, there's all that emotional energy, there's all that excitement, there's all that anticipation thinking you're gonna win this property, you're gonna go home and take the keys after that auction to find out you're over $100,000 outside of the market on a property. So it's clear that the market right now is a seller's market. Property prices are selling for new records. And to be able to navigate that market, you need to be using new techniques and new strategies to get in there, which I'm gonna take you through. So how do you navigate this wild market? Well, firstly, you need to be decisive. Speaking to our local agent this week, she told us that properties are selling within 2 to 3 hours of the listing going online. Stuff is selling quickly, so you need to be decisive. I know for myself, when I was looking at upgrading last year, our home got too small and we started looking for a new home. When I started, I thought, hey, I'm gonna buy a Queenslander, maybe I'll renovate it, add some value, buy it a bit cheaper and do that. But I missed out on a Queenslander. Then I thought I'd buy a house, knock it down and build it from the ground up. Then I found out build prices are super expensive. Then I finally decided that I'd buy an existing property that someone had done the work for that I could just move in and settle. But the indecision of changing from a renovator to a build to buying an existing property actually made me lose out on 3 other properties. And I've got a whole other video talking about how I missed out on an auction and I was outpriced by the market in just what felt like it was a completely unfair situation. The reality is the fault was mine. I was too indecisive. I didn't know what I want and I didn't know what property prices were selling for. So don't make my mistake. So here are my 3 tips to making sure you're decisive and making sure you're not going to miss out on that dream home. Number 1, be certain on the type of property you're looking at buying. In my case, I went from renovating to building to buying an existing property that had been done. And that's really common. I speak to a lot of people that are thinking, maybe I'll buy a townhouse, maybe I'll buy a house in a different area, and they're completely different and you're not gonna know the market landscape. Being decisive with the specific property that you're looking at buying is gonna help you buy it, because as soon as it comes online, you're gonna be the person that's making an offer on it within 2 hours of it listing and not missing out. We have a buyer's brief checklist that I'll link to below that will help you narrow down your focus and understand exactly what you want to buy in a home. Tip 2 is become a suburb expert. Now, we've talked about this in a bunch of our videos before, but I can't stress enough. When properties are selling for $100,000 over what recent sales are, you need to be across that. You need to understand the landscape, you need to be talking to the agents and be a supreme suburb expert. Narrow your suburb list down to 2 suburbs maximum. You need to understand them intricately. You need to know the schools, the catchments, if there's flood issues, if there's airplanes that fly overhead, know what recent sales are going for, because then as soon as you find a place, you're gonna be in with a shot knowing what it's actually gonna sell for. So number 3, know your budget. Biggest disappointment I'm finding right now with a lot of home buyers is just not acknowledging that the market is going up. I know when I was buying, I was using sales from 12 months ago saying, hey, the market hasn't moved. This is the price that they paid 12 months ago. I'm not paying $1 more than that. The reality is, when you've got 5 or 6 other offers, someone is willing to pay that price and you need to go in there with 2 eyes open. So you need to acknowledge if you're basing your budget on the median sale price in a specific suburb, then the data could be completely skewed. Because like I said, the data that's in there from 1, 2, 3 months ago is 10 to 15% under what stuff is actually selling for today. And also remember that it doesn't need to be your forever home. So give yourself about a 10 to 15% buffer on those recent sales. Just keep that in mind. If that's outside your budget, then you need to look at the next suburb along to potentially find something cheaper. Or if you're looking at a house, maybe think about a townhouse. All right, so what is my elbows out strategy? So at this point, you should know how much you want to pay. You understand the local market. You might have even missed out on a couple of properties. And listen, that's fine. It happened to me. It happens to people all the time. But now's the time that you either nut up or shut up. If you're gonna buy a home, you need to be aggressive and you need to be the first one there making that offer to secure your home. So like I said, late last year, I was on the hunt for a family home. Our house got too small, my kids were getting too big, and it was just not a nice situation. So I got to the point where I'd missed out on the Queensland I could renovate. I'd missed out on the house that I could knock down. I was 2-0 and feeling pretty bruised and battered, still in the small home, with my kids all over me. It was uncomfortable. By chance, I was having a conversation with one of my clients, Daniel, who has a couple of properties under his belt and said to me some really sage advice. His advice was, Jayden, you're being too soft. You've got to go in there with your elbows out. You do not want to walk away without securing the next property. If it's the right one, it's okay to overpay a little bit as long as you're comfortable at the end of the day making the repayments, because you're taking a 10, 15, 20-year view on this property, and $10,000 over that period works itself out. At first, I didn't feel super comfortable with his advice, thinking that, do I really want to overpay? That could be extra money in the bank. But at the same time, I didn't want to prolong my property search anymore. It'd been 6 months and I'd been striking out and I was not happy. So with nothing to lose, I thought I'd give his advice a crack. Using my alerts, on a Thursday night, I saw the perfect home in a suburb not too far from here. I got the email notification at 5 p.m. and by 7 p.m. I'd submitted an offer to the agent. Now, I'm not saying everyone should do this. I hadn't seen the property before, but I drove past that night, had a look at the photos and felt pretty comfortable with the situation overall. Plus, there was an open house on Saturday. I tried calling the agent, didn't answer that night. Fair enough, it's a Thursday night at 7 p.m. They can have their downtime too. The agent calls me 7 a.m. the next morning. We start negotiating. By 9 a.m., the contract is signed and I'm on my way to owning my new home. By the time Saturday rolls around, with the first open house and with me having the property under contract, the agent received 3 other written offers, some that were $50,000 over what I'd already offered. For me and for others, the elbows out strategy works really well because you're decisive. You're the first one in there and you get the property under contract.
You need to be aggressive because otherwise, if I got into a bidding war with that other person, I would have potentially paid an extra $50,000 more than what I would have wanted to. And it all worked because I used the strategies I mentioned before. I knew the suburb back to front. I was aware of all the recent comparable sales. I knew the exact type of property I was looking for. I didn't want to renovate. I didn't want to build a home. I wanted something that was done and I could move in and get on with my life the next day. And lastly, I was comfortable with my budget. I had that 10 to 15% sort of slippage where I knew, all right, this is where I'm comfortable, this is my stretch budget, and I'm fine with that. So long story short, I secured the home, we've moved into it, and couldn't be happier. Listen, thank you, Daniel, for your elbows out strategy. It worked for me, and I know it is working for a lot of people in the current market. So are you gonna try it out? Check out some of our checklists below and see what you think, and tell me, leave a comment below. Are you gonna try the elbows out strategy, or how did you secure your home? Would love to hear. Here at Hunter Galloway, we're the home for home buyers. We're in the business of getting home loans approved. If you need help with finance, get in touch at huntergalloway.com.au.